All right, today we are going deep. We're going to tackle some of the biggest questions we ask about ourselves, and we'll do it through the eyes of one of history's most fascinating and, let's be honest, controversial thinkers.
I mean, really, think about it. Every single night, your brain cooks up these incredible, sometimes bizarre worlds and stories. Why? What's the point of all that?
And then there's our daily lives, right? You see people making choices, reacting to things, you have your own patterns. What's actually pulling the strings behind all that behavior?
Or how about when you get hit with a sudden wave of anger or sadness that just seems to come from absolutely nowhere? You know, these are huge questions about what it means to be human. And our guide for today is the guy who first grabbed a pen and tried to draw a map of that inner world.
Yep, we're talking about Sigmund Freud. He was a doctor who looked away from the physical body and stared right into this huge, uncharted territory we call the mind. He was basically its very first explorer. Now, Freud wasn't just some philosopher making stuff up. He was a trained medical doctor. Born way back in 1856, he became a neurologist in Vienna, so a brain specialist. And early in his career, he started noticing something really strange. He had patients with very real physical problems, but with zero physical explanation for them. And this led him to this game-changing question. What if the problem wasn't in the body at all? What if it was hiding somewhere in the mind? That one question meant it changed everything, not just for him, but for the entire field of psychology.
So, Freud set off on his quest to chart this hidden landscape. And his first major breakthrough was a concept you've probably heard of, the idea that there's this secret, super powerful part of our mind that we don't even know exists. He gave it a name, the unconscious mind. He pictured it as this deep, dark reservoir, just filled with feelings, memories, and primal urges, all humming along completely beneath our awareness, but, and this is the key, influencing pretty much everything we think, say, and do.
Now, to help people wrap their heads around this pretty wild idea, Freud came up with a simple but totally brilliant metaphor that we still use all the time. He said the mind is just like an iceberg.
You know that little tip you see floating above the water? That's our conscious mind. It's what we're thinking about right now. But that enormous, massive chunk of ice hidden under the waves? That, he said, is the unconscious. And he believed that's where all our forgotten memories, secret desires, and deepest fears are stored.
Okay, so if this huge, influential part of our mind is totally hidden from us, how in the world do you even begin to explore it? Well, Freud's answer was surprisingly simple, but it would completely revolutionize medicine. It all came down to the power of talking. He called his method psychoanalysis. And the whole goal was to drag all that stuff from the unconscious up into the conscious mind, where you could finally look at it, understand it, and deal with it. It was a brand new way of healing. At its heart, his technique was to just get patients to talk freely about their dreams, their earliest memories, their fears, whatever popped into their heads. This is where talk therapy comes from. He had this technique called free association, where you just say whatever comes to mind, no filter. Freud thought that by following that random train of thought, you could find a secret path leading right back to the unconscious. And as Freud kept listening to his patients, his map of the mind got even more detailed. He started to believe that our personality isn't just one single thing. Instead, it's this constant, chaotic negotiation between three competing forces, kind of like three little voices inside our heads. He called them the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is like your inner toddler. It's all instinct, just screaming, I want it now. The superego is the opposite. It's your inner rulebook, your conscience, whispering, you should do the right thing. And stuck right in the middle is the ego. It's the decision maker, the one trying to balance what the id wants with what the superego says is right. Here's a super simple way to get it. Your id is yelling for that piece of cake before you've even had dinner. Your superego is wagging a finger, saying it's not healthy. And your ego is the one that steps in and says, okay, how about we have the cake after we finish our vegetables? That little internal debate, it's happening inside you constantly.
And hey, remember those dreams from the beginning? For Freud, they weren't just random brain static. Oh no. He called them the royal road to the unconscious. He believed they were secret, coded messages from our inner self, showing us all the wishes and fears that our ego keeps locked down during the day.
So, after all this, what's the final verdict on Sigmund Freud? Well, his ideas absolutely blew up, shaping everything from psychology to art. But his work is also probably one of the most debated things in history. On one hand, you just can't deny his impact. He's the reason we have therapy. He made it okay to talk about mental health. But, and it's a big but, a lot of his biggest theories are almost impossible to scientifically prove or disprove. For modern psychology, which is all about evidence and experiments, that's a huge issue. A lot of critics today say his work is more like philosophy than science, and they point out that he was maybe a little too focused on childhood and that some of his ideas are just plain outdated.
But here's the thing, and this is maybe the most important takeaway. Even with all the criticism, Freud's real contribution was that he kicked the door wide open. Before him, our inner world of thoughts and feelings wasn't really seen as something you could seriously study. He made it a subject. He gave us a new vocabulary to talk about ourselves, and he started a conversation that's still going strong today.
So, let's do a quick recap. Freud gave us this incredible idea of the unconscious mind. He invented talk therapy, which is still the foundation of so much counseling. He gave us that id, ego, and superego model for how our personality works. And maybe most importantly, he completely changed how we talk about mental health. Forever.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. Freud's biggest invitation was for us to look inward, to listen to our own hidden voices. So, the next time you wake up from some crazy, vivid dream, maybe just take a second and ask yourself, what message is my unconscious trying to send me?